the beauty of working with Our Hometown is that you have the entrepreneurial spirit, and
thank you. Yes.
You're willing to try things and try them in almost instantly.
Welcome to the Our Hometown News podcast, where we discuss industry news, events, and tech tips for local news publishers. Today we have a very special guest with us on the show, Grant Hamilton, publisher of Neighbor to Neighbor News, a group of community newspapers based out of East Aurora, New York. In today's interview, we discuss Our Hometown's audio articles feature, as well as a new implementation of playlists and future developments of automated audio, including podcasts. Let us know your thoughts on the future of audio and podcasting for local news publishers. Thank you for checking out the show, and here is our interview with Grant Hamilton.
So, audio articles. I kind of want to just start this off by having you describe that feature for us from your perspective as a publisher.
All right. It's something new and different on our site, which is always good. That's the start. Like to experiment, see what will bring people to the site, what will keep them there. One of the things I hope to do is to have the engagement, the time on the site longer.
Right.
Because it takes a little longer to listen than it does to read.
Very true.
Our audio articles are being read at about the speed of a television newscaster. Right. I'm thinking that the shorter articles will probably get more audio activity, but we're in the experiment stage now. Right. One of the questions I asked you on a call some time ago that you were on was, okay, how do you monetize this? Okay. Right. And fortunately, we got an advertiser to sponsor it. They get a 20-second spot.
Check that out. Yeah.
Audiology and Speech is the sponsor of the podcast, but they're also the sponsor of the audio articles.
Right. Okay, great. So
link there.
Right. This links to their site. Right. So, what we could do with some HTML, and we can write it up for you if you just give us the link and the copy. If you wanted to display a message above the player and link to their site there as well, that's an option. But let's talk about this. So you were talking 10,000 feet. Like, what is where are you going 10 steps from now? And the goal of all of this is to drive engagement, increase time on site. Right. Increase the value of the subscription to the paying subscribers. But what the ultimate, manifestation of this is the podcast, in my mind, because it's a playlist of your newspaper.
Right. That's actually, I think you probably recall that the audio articles were offered. I listened to them for a while, and I said, well, I'm sure that it's worth the investment. When the podcast was entered into it and the playlist from that, I thought, okay, it's a new way to look at it. And we were able to sell the service to Aurora Audiology to cover the cost and then some. And that's basically what I'm trying to do on a lot of these things, is just experiment, but covering the cost. Work on improving the margin and getting more to the bottom line. But right now it's okay, let's try this and let's see if we can do that for free, basically, on our yeah, exactly. At least at no cost to the paper, but hopefully at a profit.
So it sounds like it was an economic decision, and it was really the advertiser that when you went back to them and said, we can now do a podcast, they said, now I'm in. That brought you in.
Yeah, I think we presented it as a whole, because I'm still trying to figure out the podcast side of it now.
Right.
But the fact that they were sponsoring this service, and we may put their HTML, a little logo or something on with each article, but I don't want to get it too cluttered either. So
sure, yeah,
and they're getting a 20-second spot ahead of every play, so of every article.
Right, exactly. So you think it was both of those things, you presented it as a package. So it's both the pre-roll and the banner ad right above the podcast. It's probably that's the package. Okay, very cool.
Experimented a little bit with the pre-roll, okay, and presented it to the advertiser, and they liked it. You can alter a little bit the way the audio is presented by paragraphs and spaces and things like that. So it's a little different, but I wanted to keep it down to about a 20-second intro, and I didn't want to lose people.
Right. Well, let's check this example out so everyone knows what we're talking about. So this is an audio article with a pre-roll from a local advertiser.
Start your journey to better hearing with Aurora Audiology and Speech. Offering hearing tests, hearing aids, repairs and custom ear protection. Aurora Audiology and Speech. 97 Hamburg Street in East Aurora. Schedule your appointment today by calling 716-652-6464. New Parkdale principal ready to meet and work with community.
Let's listen to this.
It's a new school year, with familiar friends and new faces, and there will be a new principal walking through the halls who is looking forward to the first day of school. I simply can't wait, Thani Pantoa said, who was recently appointed as the new principal at Parkdale. The community needs to know I am excited for this opportunity. I recognize the diamond that East Aurora is in Western New York, and I am eager to get to know people and support the children of the community at Parkdale.
All right, so that's kind of the whole basic unit of this feature is the audio article, and sometimes included in that is the audio ad. Not every one of our customers is running audio ads, but most of them do.
Take a look at the podcast. Right. One of the things we're doing there and experimenting with, part of it is correcting the computer's audio reading.
Right. So how does that happen? Like there's sometimes where it just says the name.
Yeah, the name, just, it's a pretty darn good representation, but it doesn't touch everything. Look at a first for New York.
A first for New York. What would Alice say? History was made this week with Kathy Hochul being sworn in as New York's first woman governor.
You have to learn what the computer thinks of things, but it's really pretty good.
It's pretty good. The names are sometimes an issue. Really, it's just proper names sometimes, but that can be, kind of a big issue. So this is something that we're focused on. It's going to be like generation 2 of audio articles that we're going to be able to fix this, because what we have right now is basically what we get from the transcription software.
Right.
Input, output. But what we need to be able to do is create kind of like a separate version of the article that's just the audio version, and give you the tools to edit this without changing the actual way it's written in the article.
I think the ability to change it is there. It's just, and you've always been focused on, okay, let's keep this as efficient as possible. So.
That's right.
Alice Hubbard used the fame of the Roycroft shops to promote her ideas in books and articles she authored and on the lecture circuit.
So these are both different narrator voices with the newscaster effect, the machine learning kind of driven improvement in the tonality and the pacing and everything. Here's another article that must have been just the default Matthew.
I haven't sold this yet, but take a listen.
Here's your East Aurora area weather forecast for the upcoming weekend from the National Weather Service in Buffalo. Something that is always predictable is the great car wash available at Sammy's at Quaker Road and Gray Street. Friday. A slight chance of showers between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. So then a chance of...
I have to go down and see Sammy or send somebody from the sales department down and say, hey, when we do the weather, the weekend weather, we can drop your name in there and, X dollars a week or whatever.
Right. I like that a lot because, you can do a longer ad that way when it's buying a certain category. And this is easy for you. I mean, it's relatively easy because you're already uploading the articles to the website.
I think we talked about once before is, boy, it would be nice to be able to do a Q&A and have one voice be the question and the other be the answer. If you could just put one in bold and one, and the computer finds out that the bold one is female voice and the regular one, that's down the line kind of idea.
Well, I love that. Absolutely. That seems like the next thing that we could do, but I think
or the ability to change the voice for a mid-roll audio ad.
Mid-roll ads are interesting.
In the middle of the story, we'll be back in a moment. Here's if you could change that voice, then it'd be clearer that it's a commercial rather than a continuation of the story. So
absolutely. Another thing that
a radio station, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what this is, and it's. I love that we're doing that because it's something. Eventually, what we'll be able to do is create an endless feed of audio because you got all your archives, mm-hmm. And so. We can just keep recommending stories and keep going back. It's basically 24/7 radio and then maybe video, as we talked about last time. One other idea I brought up to engineering the other day. What would you think of this? If you have an article where the narrator is reading, Matthew's reading just the text, but then when there's quotes, if we could change the voice, how crazy would that be?
That's great.
I mean, that's
the same idea as the Q&A.
It's the same idea. It's the exact same idea. That's what gave me the idea. Right. Mm-hmm. It would have to know very clearly, who is talking, but that's another level of complexity.
Yeah, it is. And I think in a lot of cases, when you're writing the story, and this is part of the evolution, you got to use a few more, typically we'll say, John Jones said, and then the quote, and then the next paragraph continues. Sometimes in the audio version, you need to say, said John Jones again. You have to.
Absolutely.
But so far, I mean, what we've done on the podcast side, we bury the podcast stories. Okay. The system.
Yep.
I think picks up anything you wanted to pick up.
Right. Any category. Yes.
We kind of bury the podcast stories. So they're different and people aren't reading them. So it knows where to look and it doesn't grab things that we didn't ask it to grab. So
the basics here that are going on is that we're creating the audio file on the article level. And as Grant said, we had that feature for a long time, and it was just on the article level, and there was some engagement there. But to really take it to the next level, we're feeding it to Buzzsprout, which is a third-party app, and then embedding this from Buzzsprout. So we can actually, because it's on Buzzsprout, we can easily publish all these articles also to podcast apps like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Is that something that you're doing?
Frankly, not being a great podcast follower, I don't know what I'm doing half the time on this thing. But apparently I'm following our podcast because it'll pop up the most recent podcast on the phone.
So Ed, so how exactly does that work? You publish the article on the website, and then virtually instantly it appears on the podcast app.
Yeah. Right. That's ultimately, and obviously where people are going to be working in the next 10 years will be a different thing as well.
Right.
But ultimately, this can be with a playlist, this can be ride to work and listen to the news from your hometown instead of an endless loop of what's happening elsewhere in the world. And it sounds good.
That's truly where it becomes a radio, where the newspaper becomes a radio station, when you're streaming in the car or on the go. And it's funny because we're trying to make, each month topical at our hometown, the things that we talk about and the things we interview publishers about. And to me, They talk about the mobile revolution and how, now it's 70 to 80% of traffic to news sites is mobile devices. So people are checking in on their phone. What's after mobile? To me, it's audio. It's got to be, the audio is even more mobile than, your smartphone, because you can be moving and your hands free, eyes are free. Right. So, this is cool, and people are really tuning in, and they are subscribing to other podcasts already on these apps, like podcast, Spotify. I do personally. And so to just have your stuff in there next to these national brands, it's pretty cool. It really puts you on a new level. The technology has leveled the playing field.
Because we aren't publishing everything to the podcast, so far, we're able to use the free. I worked the first level up, paid into the price for the audio commercial.
Right.
We haven't had to use that because we're not overloading it, and and I don't want to really overload it. I'm still looking for what works best.
Right. And let me ask you about that, because this is something that publishers come down on both sides on, in terms of giving away this content, because you have a metered paywall. So you give away some text articles every month, and people can listen to those stories. The podcast is free, but you don't put everything out there. So that's probably part of the strategy, to preserve the value of the content, right?
Well, we also time it differently.
Yeah. Okay.
So it may appear website first, print.
Right.
Then podcast might appear print, website, podcast. We time the podcast so that it's a little behind, unless it's something we want out very timely. And we haven't created yet kind of a news summary, but that's something that I'd like to do for weekends, is to have here's the weekend events, and just list them in one story. We cover a lot of events, but we cover them with full stories. And I'd like to be able to say, well, the Taste of East Aurora is this Saturday at such and such a time, or list the 10 things that are going on the weekend.
Yeah, so that's
a new
perfect segue.
That's a new author. Okay, you write that separately, but actually it has value on the website side too. So
sure, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, what you're saying is actually setting me up for the next thing that I definitely want to talk about, which is the new player. We wanted to get people into this player, quickly and easily. So it's really easy to get there. Like, basically every article has this link at the bottom, and we also have links on the category level. So you can go into a category playlist or a playlist based on a specific article. But let's just go into a playlist based on recent news.
Start your journey to better hearing with Aurora Audiology.
So first of all, it automatically starts playing, and I think that's important. It doesn't actually, to be totally honest, on some browsers, they prevent that. They just straight up prevent autoplay on things. But for the most part, we are getting it to autoplay. And once it starts playing the first article, it's just going to play the whole playlist. And, really what we have here, what we're directing people to, is this hub of playlists. And it's endless what we can do with this. I mean, we could create a playlist for a specific category. I mean, we're already doing that. So you could have an events category and basically create that experience you just described, where you have, multiple events in a row. You could do that with a playlist, because it would just be stitching together multiple articles. So you could still publish them as multiple articles, but then present them as just like this continuous flow of events, and I think playlists are better because, well, then you just don't have to take the time of even writing that article again, where you copy all the stories. Now, here's something, it's just a product development side note. I mean, with the playlists, the goal is definitely to have dynamically inserted ads. So we're going to be able to take the audiology ad and go put it between articles. My goal with that is to space it out a little bit more, to have it play in front of every story. I don't know I sometimes wonder if we want to try to even start spacing it out now a little bit. And I had some ideas for that. Would you be open to that? Do you think the advertiser would be okay if it wasn't in front of every single story? It was in front of.
I think so. And you know, and if you get down to the customization, sort of like you do with banner ads, if you can get down to the customization and saying, okay, obituaries is we're going to do different than we're going to do in news. So, but that's, you know me, I'm always making you do things that.
No. This is, I could sense in your reaction that you're like, yeah, this needs to happen. Like what I picture is that we have two playlists, basically. You got the article playlist and your ad playlist. And then those kind of intertwine in different ways, and you can program that. So you can say, yeah, this ad appears only on this category of articles, and it appears every 3 articles.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have the technology is probably in there with the banner ads.
So the banner ads, Ad Rotate Pro. I don't know if we're technically going to use that, but the goal is to integrate it eventually so that, picture this, like you could be having a playlist go by, and as we're listening to the audio articles, just for the sake of demonstration though, on mobile, we don't have room for that, so we have a switch. So you click this button and you go back and forth between the article view. So you can look at the pictures, you can read the article as it's being read to you, or you can look at the playlist and find another story to read. Imagine this was, instead of this one, this taco business, let's say this was actually an ad. What I'm going to do for you is probably talk to my ops team about just basically creating a bunch of articles that are the ads and put them in the playlist for the time being. Basically write an audio, take that audiology ad and publish it as an article, and then it will appear in the playlist. That would be a way to fake it. But eventually when we have this working and it's truly 2 different lists and you're merging them, then this would appear as an ad. Maybe it would have some coloring around it, make it stand out as an ad. And then where the article is, you'd have run the print ad there. Like we could take print ads and turn them into audio ads, the method.
Well, I think one of the beauties of the text to audio, it's a whole lot easier to write text. And even if you start thinking in terms of radio advertising as opposed to recording,
totally
re-recording, and that's what I love about it. And even if I have to go in and fix the governor's name or something like that, but the main thing is, we did a few traditional podcasts with 4 people and microphones and the time involved, and you had to do it in a certain place, where when I'm experimenting, it might be 6 o'clock in the morning at my house, or like this morning, I hadn't thought about the pace, other than sometimes I thought it was a little slow, but Matthew's pretty good. So I was looking up some statistics of broadcast news, and they say, well, around 150 words a minute.
One other option that we were just looking at, apparently there's kid voices available. So if there's like any kid events, or there's like a school section, I don't know if school news would really be read by a kid, but
well, we do a thing, I think we call it in print, it's Voice of the Future, and we have students submit. So
that's perfect.
The high school senior probably wouldn't want a little kid's voice, but the 5th grader or 4th grader that in a little story, I think that would be great.
I just wanted to get this in before I forget, to look at some stats really quick. This is exciting to me. This is your site, and we're looking at just these event categories. So this is over a week's time. Basically, on the audio articles, you were getting a handful of complete listens to that on the audio player on the article level. But the player that pulls up the playlist I mean, you're getting over 100, and I would imagine that's going to, wind up being almost 10 times as many listens, which is the highest ratio I've seen. I've had everyone increases their plays when we've added the playlists and the player, much closer to like 2 or 3 times an increase. So that's pretty cool. This is your stats. I know that you don't use this because there's a lot of information in here, but I go in here every day since we launched this feature because I want to watch your stats on these the player, and you can see like how many complete plays you've gotten, how many half plays, quarter plays.
That's what we were talking about last time that I looked at, and I didn't know where to find it on the.
This is where it is. Yeah. So if you can just log into your stats, it's right on the homepage of the dashboard under event categories.
If we can look at the timing, if they give up on a long form or go 100% on the short form, then we know what we want to at least move over to the podcasts.
It's probably common sense, but you obviously get the most quarter plays and then it drops off. But, most of your articles are going to be like 2 minutes long. So, we're talking about someone listened 30 seconds here. I think if you open this up, you get a lot more detail. So if I look at like this quarter play, yeah, so you can get all the details. I can see this was actually 45 seconds of listening, counts as a quarter play. And on a different article, 45 seconds is a complete play. So, it just depends on what article you're listening to. But if you click on plays and look at the visit log, it's pretty fun. I mean, this is all anonymous information that you just have the IP. But I can see, people from East Aurora coming in here and exactly how they use this feature. In this case, they logged into the website. They came in through the e-edition first, the most popular event that we're tracking on the site. Go into the e-edition, which is cool. But this is catching up there. I mean, combining the activity that's going on the navigation page. And again, the navigation page looks like this. It's the audio home. So this is tracking what people are doing on this page, like what playlists are they clicking on.
The information seems to be there. It would be nice to be able to look across and say, okay, this article, a certain number of audio plays, and they lasted this long, all in one lies them.
That's a very logical thing to ask for, though. Should be able to do that pretty easily. I want to be able to see what's my most popular audio article of all time, of today. I mean, and we're definitely collecting all this stats because that's how we generate these playlists. Top audio articles. That's what that is. Return to the site. You can always come back to the site from the player. We've got this, which is top audio articles, which is basically your top news widget for audio. So we're definitely tracking it. I mean, we pretty much covered, I think, the player. So just to put a bow on this, you've got the podcast category, which is not displayed anywhere.
Oh, it's under, if you look at our town, and then there's a subcategory audio.
So what I'm picturing is that we will go in and just create a bunch of, just for the time being, just to test out this concept, we'll remove the pre-roll ad on all the articles, okay, going forward. And then we will schedule out the dozen articles that have the advertiser's copy in there. We can even have the ad graphic that's run on the right column as the featured image, and then it will appear in the playlist, occasionally. Yeah.
Well, let's try it.
Those articles would also appear in these playlists. Right.
And it gives you more control to have more if you have more than one sponsor.
More than one advertiser. Yeah. The thing is, we're going to be, like I said, pretty much faking this feature for now. Eventually, we want to come up with a way to automate it. So it's just like, dynamically inserts the ads and everything. But we'll get there. That's I kind of like to prove it works.
Good old workaround is fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm constantly on the website, doing workaround. Well, that's what I've done with the podcast.
That's right.
We're going to write these as if they're intended for audio. I don't do it. Can't do it all the time because it's a time question. But if you can do that, and if you can start blending that kind of writing into the website and product, at least be aware.
So the people, even if you have people that are purely focused on the print side, they should be aware that this is going to become, or it may become, an audio story. Yeah. So the way you write certain things, I don't know, like spell them out a little bit more, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's a matter of experimentation, right. and exactly. Some of them are pretty simple. And if the technology catches up where you can put a list of words that are mispronounced or right. a list of names.
Well, let me ask you this. What we're going to do first is create the ability to make these changes. And like you said, upload a list of names. But I'm thinking like long term, a good interface would be just through the front end of the website somehow. Like if I'm logged in as an editor, if I could be listening to a story and realize, oh, that's wrong, and just like click on the word right here, and somehow feed that into the database, like the input from here, or maybe from the editor on the back end, something
that
like
would be good.
One thing that might be helpful, you just kind of gave me an idea for, if you could publish an article as a draft and get a player in here so you could listen to it before going live with it. That would be a nice option too. So you're developing a good rhythm probably for these, because I can see like you did all this very deliberately. You added a paragraph break. Like if you didn't have a paragraph break, would it be a detectable difference in the pause?
Yeah, that's basically a pause. And in the later days, I may not put the pause in there, or I may take out the amount of precipitation or something, little extra editing. The beauty of working with Our Hometown is that you have the entrepreneurial spirit, and
thank you. Yes.
You're willing to try things and try them in almost instantly. And as I said before, I ask for something, you do it, and then I'm still trying to figure out how we're going to work it into our plans. But
okay.
You guys react faster, or at least as fast as I can think of things, and feel free to say, this doesn't make sense, or this is going to be so much engineering that you're probably never going to use anyway. So nice idea, but put it in the future basket.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that definitely happens with ideas coming from all directions, but I think it has yet to happen for you, actually. And that is just the biggest compliment I could ever expect. I mean, the entrepreneurial thing, definitely, I see that as a huge compliment, because we're small and that allows us to pivot easily. And, we have this highly flexible platform, WordPress. What do you think about, before we even get to video, I'm actually really interested in voice control. Is that something that is on your radar at all? You think people would use that?
I'm well behind the curve in doing that, although I use, Siri to tell me how long to cook a hamburger, So
you do use Siri for Google searches, basically.
And I find it's not always maybe it's the way I'm asking, but if you could have that working on our sites, a lot more people are using those services than I do.
That's the thing. I use it for very specific tasks. Like texting. I love text to speech, while you're driving. That works really well. I think things just as simple as voice control of the playlist. So you can say skip, pause, but then maybe eventually having a search area in here where you could search, keyword search for an article by voice.
I think anything that makes it easier for the reader to, or listener, whatever it is, that's our content is good.
Exactly. However they want to do it. And I think the big industry leaders like Google, as we just saw, they do it. I happen to notice on Amazon's app, you can do it. They're kind of like training people to use these things. And so we can kind of like work off of that current and be perceived as, super techie and way ahead of the times because we're kind of just like what Google's doing. So that's the benefit of this company just in general. I mean, we can figure out the platform, the plugins, the ad network, and then we're experts. So you don't have to be, Yeah.
Well, I think that's, that's one of the beauties, and you can do it this way, face to face or an email, and all your folks are very responsive.
Excellent. I really appreciate all your feedback as always, Grant. And it's
fun trying to figure out what's next.
We went way too long before doing one of these. This is totally going to be a recurring thing. We're going to do these every week and talk to as many publishers as we can, some more than others. And, you and I have so much to talk about. You're kind of making full use of the platform. So we'll circle back as we talk on different topics over the next couple months. Okay? Sounds great. Awesome. That's great, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Grant. We'll talk to you later, man. Yeah, hope to see you in person. Yep, absolutely. See ya in Saratoga. Take care, man. Let's hope so. Yeah, later.